Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, everybody? We are live at the Minnesota Trucking Association's 90th annual conference.
90th annual,
That's
yes.
where we're at. I'm joined by Joyce Brenny with Brenny Specialized. She is, introduce yourself. Let's just go with that.
Well, absolutely. I am the founder and the owner of Brenny Specialized, Brenny Transportation in St. Joseph, Minnesota.
Okay. So St. Joseph, Minnesota, you are in reference, because everybody who's not from the Midwest is like, how close are you to a big city? I know where it is, but for everybody out there, you're what? How far north of Minneapolis?
Well, we are 70 miles northwest of Minneapolis.
Okay. I like it.
Beautiful little town.
I ask this with every time I talk to anybody, you know, for me, because trucking is a family business for the most part. Everybody who's in this industry either got into it by accident, like they lost a bet when they graduated college, or they were in it for life. They started out, you know, from a family member. So how did you get your start in the industry, Joyce?
Well, that's always a good question that I've been trying to figure out the short answer for a long time. And I graduated in 1981. And at that time, there were no jobs. So I was a farm kid, grew up driving everything since day one. And I actually took a job driving a semi truck and pulling railroad ties from St. Cloud, Minnesota up to Superior, Wisconsin.
That was your first experience?
That was my first experience in the trucking industry.
I love that.
And that led to a lifelong career of, 40 years.
So how did you get into the specialized side of things, though? Because I think, like, with it, because anybody who starts out in trucking, they're always looking to kind of like find their footings. And it's like everybody tends to gravitate towards like the power lanes of drive-in or refrigerated freight or anything like that. What got you into specialized transportation? Well,
I think just having a little bit of that flatbed experience starting out. And then that was my first job behind the scenes, if you want to call it that. My first job as a carrier was at a flatbed carrier. So that's kind of where the experience came. That's where the customer contact came into play. So that became my passion. And I knew nothing about the reefer business. So I knew about flatbed and knew about overdimensional freight, specialized freight. Since then, we have a van division as well. Yeah. And again, the name Brenny Specialized, we do more specialized van type freight, pad wrap, that type of stuff. So our drivers are, they're just more into the specialized type freight, and it's just more of a challenge. Yeah. And they like it.
Now, I love specialized transportation. Like for the last 4 years that I was brokering, that's all I did was open deck, heavy haul, multi-axle RGN. And it was just like a different challenge. It was a different caliber. And I just had so much fun with learning the intricacies of, every state's different. Like you'd think the freeway system runs across country, but every state has different laws. Every city's, major metro areas have different regulations and everything to follow as well. So how do you navigate through that?
Well, part of it, the reason that I am part of the Minnesota Trucking Association, as well as being on the board of directors, is the involvement in having a voice with those different states. Yeah. And we do, we fight that through, our state association memberships with the American Trucking Association, through Minnesota Trucking, and work towards some level of common ground through all the states. But yeah, there are definitely many laws, and I kind of giggle and smile because it happens all the time. This state you need an escort, and that state has a curfew, and that state you need escort front and back because of the the different width, and it is a challenge. So just having all of those rules and regulations to deal with is another level. It's just not easy. Yeah. And I think a lot of our drivers they know that the challenge and they enjoy it. Okay. Anyone that gets into doing flatbed and specialized, they're not doing it because they want an easy gig. Yeah. That's not their.
I agree with that. Goal. And with the current market right now, what are you guys seeing out there? Because I think a lot of people got in this industry over the last 2 years, and it's been, there's no denying it. It's been it was an inflated market at times, and it was very, very good. But with your experience, how many to put it into how many market changes have you seen, and like what were those things that you learned like the first couple of times, you're like, all right, I fucked up, I gotta change if I'm gonna continue in business? Because I think like the situations never change. It's almost like it's the same scenario throughout. It's just the years that change.
Again, it's it's just another battle in the war.
Yeah.
Really, I have a different way of looking at the trucking industry. Having gone, I started right after deregulation.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to believe. I'm only 29 years old, but I did start when I was 18. So
I was going to say, you literally started 5 years before I was born. I'm just throwing that out there.
Exactly. So I mean, having all those years of experience, I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of ups and downs of the freight markets and the recession, 9/11. I don't look at it as, oh shit, the bottom's falling out again.
Yeah.
It's just adjust the sails. It's it's just another thing we have to deal with if we're going to be in trucking.
Yeah.
And this is something I live by. Every time it gets a little tough, people bail.
Yes. And
Brenny doesn't bail.
I love that. You need to put that as a slogan on all of your trucks. Brenny doesn't bail. But like, what are some of those things? Because I think a lot of people out there are, they are into it. They've never experienced a market shift before. And to me, it's like, if you're looking at it from the overall thing, like I talk about this frequently, Joyce, I hate national averages for rates and people basing their business off of that, because it's just simply not true. It's not like every dry load out there runs for $2.50 a mile on every lane, but it's like the importance of knowing your cost per unit, and then baking in your profit margin on top of that too. Cause it's like, I know there's a bit, like the break-even calculator is massive for any business. Like, what do you need to make to stay afloat? But like, frankly, don't lose sight of the fact that you need to have profit margin baked in there for a maintenance fund, an emergency fund, and everything else. So like, how imperative is that to any size organization out there in the trucking industry?
Well, I mean, it has to be the basis of what you start your goal setting on.
Yeah.
You have to know what your expenses are. And I think that, some of the coaching we do with our owner operators, my expenses are going to be different than yours. What are your expenses? You have to know what your expenses are, and you best be living within your means. If you got in the trucking industry to get rich, if that was your reason, you're probably on a slow boat to being out of business.
Yeah.
Because you get in the trucking industry because you have a passion for what it's about. First, look at the purpose we serve. Oh my God! I mean, I think about some of the things we've hauled. After I'm long gone, the trade center, we hauled the granite for the rebuild of the World Trade Towers.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I could go on and on. That stuff really sits with our drivers.
Yeah.
And so, knowing that you're in this industry for the right reasons, not of course you're going to make a living, no doubt.
Yeah, of course.
But I can tell you one thing: it's like we did not get in this, start Brenny Specialized to get rich.
Yeah.
It mostly started because of the way I was seeing drivers were treated at other companies that I had worked with.
Yeah.
And I just really, really wanted a place where drivers were welcome and the environment was open and they could come in and talk about their concerns and give us their feedback. They're the leaders of our industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drivers are the leaders. We need to listen to them.
I agree with that. And it's like, back to what you're talking about you guys delivering the granite to the World Trade Centers and everything else. Like, I had that flip, in my switch, because like, obviously I come from the industry. My great grandparents were in trucking. My dad was an owner op for 40 years. And it's one of those things that it's like every truckload you do, everything you see on the road that's like life-saving medicine for somebody. That's the building materials to build somebody's dream home or a hospital and I want people to like, and I think this is like a societal issue as a fucking whole right now, is we don't appreciate the working class.
Right.
You don't appreciate the hardworking men and women who are behind the wheel every single day, sacrificing away from their families. And I know some people are like, oh, it's a job. It's more than just a fucking job, because it's a calling.
It's a purpose.
It's
really, I mean, it's something that you truly, truly have to be able to see the importance of what you do. Just like I could tell in your face. I mean, you have a passion for this industry. I mean, you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you truly have to have people that have a passion for this industry. And you know what? Sometimes it takes some hard knocks. and getting through those, because those are the moments where when you survive those things, you feel pretty darn good about yourself. And that's the stuff that builds on a career in trucking.
I agree. I want to talk, because I love what you said earlier about you saw how drivers were being treated at other parts of, or other companies, excuse me. And one of the things that, because again, with my old man and driving, like he refused to come on any of my stuff, like downright refused. And I was because his sentiment was, and he finally broke down and told me, he's like, Chris, nobody gives a fuck about a truck driver. He's like, I did that job for a very long time. He's like, I'm not going to come on there because nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to change because nobody wants it to change. And he always went out there and said, he's like, the general sentiment for the truck driver is, driver, go lay by your dish. Everywhere you go, whether it was a company he was driving for, the dispatchers, the shippers, the receivers. And again, like, I'm not calling out anybody, but this is an industry problem that very few actually address. And I think that hearing somebody like you take that on, like, what's your opinion out there? How do you handle it when a driver comes to you and it's like, hey, this facility doesn't let us use a restroom, and then they won't let me leave to go use a restroom, and if I do leave, I got to sit for 2 days and shit like that. That's the stuff that drives me up the wall. Like, I understand a no facilities thing at certain places, but allow the driver to leave. Let them leave the facility.
Well, if that happened, and it has happened with some of our customers, not many.
Yeah.
If it does, they're going to get a call from me. They might even get a visit. My husband still drives, still has a CDL.
Yeah, okay.
We might make a visit in the truck and just go in there nonchalant and see what we're up against. And then it's a coaching type of call and asking for their help. Yeah. When COVID hit, we had a couple customers that shut their doors down, wouldn't let drivers in, use the restroom, and so on. We called them, and many of them put, granted it wasn't the greatest thing, but at least there was a place they put in, like porta potties and stuff like that. But I think having the awareness and asking for help, people genuinely like to help.
Yeah. And
our drivers just know that I'm involved. I'm sitting here right now for them. The only reason that I'm on the Minnesota Board of Directors is for them, and for them to have a voice.
Yeah.
Because they don't have time. They don't have time to be here. And I just met with Dr. Scott Jensen, and telling him how important truck drivers are, and we appreciate what he's doing, and think about drivers and the roads and what they have to encounter, and ask for his help too. Politically getting involved.
Yes.
And I've been to Washington, D.C. I mean, it's just, and it scares the crap out of me. I mean, I'm not, I'm an introvert. I'm not that. Get out there and I do it for them.
Yeah.
Do it for them.
You have to, because it's like they need a voice, and that was another sentiment that I got from my dad was, it's like, when there's so many trucking companies, 97% of this industry is 20 trucks or less. And it's like getting them all to band together on it, but it takes a collective effort, because it's like, to me, again, and that's the whole point of all of the content that I put out there is, it's just about education to me. It's just about progress, because it's like everybody, I think anybody who's, you started a business, I've started a business, there's no playbook for this shit. There was never a resource where people could just go and like ask questions without being sold or like talked down to, like, you're a fucking idiot, how don't you know that? And I personally experienced that on my end in starting my company. And it's ironically always by somebody who's never started a business is telling you what you're doing wrong and not wanting to offer any advice, because it's like, again, what can we do to improve this industry? And that's my big thing with all of this is, it's like, I'm sick and tired of somebody should do something. It's like, fuck it, let's put our swords down. Let's actually do it. I'll be the motherfucker. If you don't agree with a lot of the shit that I say, I don't care. Like, you can literally hate everything I fucking say, but somebody's got to step up and do something.
Exactly. I mean, and taking the chance to put yourself out there. And, just like I said, it can be scary.
Yeah.
And, and you can have critics that definitely, Joyce, Brenny. I mean, I still am quite an anomaly in the industry as far as a female that has started a trucking company. So it still happens. Sometimes I think, when it does happen, I go, wow, that shit's still happening. Oh man, so it kind of sets me back. But again, it's like pick myself up and realize I'm there for the drivers, male and female drivers. I'm there for the drivers, and put yourself out there. And sometimes you say and do things that people don't agree with, but you know what? You're doing something.
Yeah.
something.
I'm a massive fan of freedom of speech. So it's like, if you hate what I say, that's fine. I don't give a fuck, you know? But ironic, I don't want you to lose that right to keep your opinion.
I've been known.
I love
see
it.
John, who's floating up there. It's like, well, you know, Joyce, she'll tell you what she thinks.
Yes. And that's good though. But like, we need that though. Like, we need more people who, we'll call it what it is, have a backbone or a spine to just come out and say it.
Well,
Like, say what everybody's thinking and feeling. Because that's where the improvements in the industry are going to start at.
Absolutely.
Is it's like, because eventually, like what I'm hoping for with a lot of this stuff is it's like, this is what's going to keep somebody in business. Like, there's a guy who's in the comments right now. Sorry guys, Joyce and I are on a roll right here, but Dedicated Trucking LLC, his name's Lewis. He started his trucking company 3 years ago. He was on my podcast a couple weeks back, and you know, his engine went out on 2 separate trucks. He maxed out his credit cards. He's paid off all his debt. He's doing this to live his American dream. And that's what I'm doing day in and day out. It's like, I'm sick and tired of the fear mongering. I'm sick and tired of the headlines that are like advocating for somebody to sell their business, where it's like, no, we don't need anybody leaving this industry.
No.
We need more people coming in. We need more drivers. We need to get more people excited about trucking, because this is like, you'll never convince me any differently. This is the greatest fucking industry in the greatest country on earth.
Amen,
And that's what we need, but we need more people to collectively stand up as a whole and put best practices out there for people to use.
Absolutely. And you know, just like you said, the majority of the industry is small
Yeah.
trucking, small truckers. Unfortunately, they're out, you know, they're out working their butt off. So, you know, finding the people that can, like you, like me, the people that truly are on their side and understand that it's a tough gig. And I've done it. My husband still, you know, does it. We need people to back them. And, you know, like you do right now, you want to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
And our doors at Brenny are open. Drivers, Mondays and Fridays, it's just a really busy time. And I love it because they're giving me their time and they're coming in and telling me about their week, telling me about the challenges that they had. Before I left today, I talked to a few of them. It's like, you know, what do you want me to bring, you know, to the MTA? What questions do you want me? What do you want me to focus on? And I got all kinds of great ideas. So
no, and that's what we need. You know, like, again, it's to me, it's like having that collective of individuals out there who are putting these best practices forward, because it's like, it's not just about Brenny Specialized when you're talking like that. It's, I mean, how many small trucking companies are here? You know, like, and then how many of those drivers that are out there as well, who are one truck owner operators out there trying to live their dream. And it's like, they're going to be able to sit down and talk with you. Like the Circle of CEO, like the CEO table, round table tomorrow is like listening to, you know, like Dave Abels, he's in the audience right now. Shout out to Dave, AFC Transport. And, you know, he was here last year as well. And just like being able to sit down and collectively have all of our questions answered in as an industry, you know, it's because it's like, you need people of organizations of all sizes coming out there, because, you know, it's like, you look at it right now, like, what are all the large fleets doing right now? They're buying equipment because the market's starting to come down. And then what did they do when the market was up? They sold, you know? So again, it's like, it's rotating through all of those things. And it's like information that, again, all right, cool. Now this is what somebody can do on their growth strategy when the market shifts back. Because how many market shifts have you seen, Joyce?
Yeah.
Many. Exactly.
I was on the CEO roundtable last year. I got the honor of being one of the CEOs, and it's a great way to share information. But again, going back to people first, then profits. You don't have nothing if you don't have the people. So I mean, if you don't put your people first, you might as well forget about the profits. There ain't gonna be any.
That's it. That is exactly it. Case, it's at 6. Is that what the fuck tally's at? That's their running joke. They keep a fuck tally every time I go live.
And you know what? I'm being a good girl.
You said, yeah. You know what, Joyce kept it real.
I'm a trucker. It's like, it's
Carsen,
really,
you ready?
I don't want to get in trouble.
Hey, it's all good. We're good. Well, hey, Joyce, thank you so much for joining me.
Wonderful.
We're gonna get
Chris.
Karsen on here next, and she's
the
with the St. Christopher Trucker Relief Fund. She's gonna be on the podcast here in a couple of weeks. We're gonna talk about that great organization and what they're doing for the industry as a whole.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Joyce. Nice to meet you as
person.
well. All right. We got another guest coming up here, you guys. Yes, Dave, I would love to help out with that new Minneapolis launch for you guys. Raquel, good morning, good evening. Sorry, I'm so messed up. Karsen, let's roll, my man. Sonny Sharma. Orange shirt gang. 8:15, 8:30-ish, about that. Okay. That'll work? Yeah. We're live right now, my man. Karsen, what's up?
Not much. How we doing?
I'm doing well. Karsen, introduce yourself. We're live right now out there. We got people who are on the stream. So introduce yourself. Who are you? Who are you with?
All right. I'm with Valley Transportation Service Incorporated out of Grand Meadow, Minnesota. And my name is Karsen Ulwelling, and I'm the director of safety down there.
I love it, man. What are you guys doing right now from a safety perspective? Like what's top of mind? Well, always it's, obviously clearly the safety of your drivers, but again, with any freight market that we find ourselves in, new entrants coming in and out and everything else, how do you guys take on safety, like, and kind of roll with that?
So I would say that we use a put the driver first approach. So when you're looking at customers, brokers, receivers, we always want to make sure that it's possible for our drivers.
Yeah.
We don't want to crunch any timelines. And, we have a saying in our industry, and I use it a lot, and that's be safe, make money, and go home.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is that is being safe and going home. So
how do you, like, what from a safety program perspective, because again, I think like as people are growing out their fleets, I'm not saying safety is ever on the back burner, but the processes that are needed, the documentation, what is like an oversight that you've seen in your experience in this industry by a company from a safety perspective?
So we utilize a driver scorecard approach, and it's similar to the report card coming home from third grade, and showing mom and dad hanging it on the fridge. And so we got 26 different things that we measure with our driver scorecard. And a lot of people, they look at fuel mileage and tire wear. We don't even entertain that. We look at safety, paperwork, hours of service, customer satisfaction levels. From a safety perspective, there's about 10 key performance indicators that we keep track of: accidents, cargo claims, tickets, moving violations. And we're a really proactive company, I would say. Active. We don't want to talk to you after you get the seatbelt or speeding ticket.
Yeah.
We want to talk to you about it before and prevent that, so that all of us can benefit from it.
So what's your thoughts on cameras? Are like, because I've heard both sides. How many times that drivers are pinged for an at fault, and depending on the size of the logo on the side of your cab, you're fucked in a lot of instances.
Yep.
But that's why I think that there's a benefit of having that. I'm not a massive fan of like the inward facing from like an intrusive standpoint, but I also have seen some videos where, again, it proved that the driver wasn't doing the wrong thing. So what's your stance on that?
I think video intelligence is going to be a requirement in less than 24 months of most insurance companies, motor carriers, and I'm all for that. The thing we look at is there was safety in the cab before any technology. So how do we manage that? But now how do we start implementing technology to crank up that safety level? And you get a guy that has a hard brake. Well, was it a hard brake because he recognized taillights in front of him and he slowed down to avoid a crash? Or was it a hard brake because he wasn't paying attention, was on his phone, and slammed on the brakes because he was about to have a collision?
Yeah.
So I get the driver facing part of it. I get the outward facing part of it. Actually at Valley, we're exploring dash cams for our vehicles as we speak, dealing with a few different vendors. And at this time, we're only going to do the front facing camera and avoid the driver facing. So I do believe there's a time and a place for it. And we're exploring that. So,
and that's good. Cause again, I'm right there with you. I think from an insurance, especially with the, I get fucking disgusted even saying the word speed limiter, but it's like with that kind of gaining traction at some level, again, it's like, I feel like anything you can do to keep somebody safe. And I think like as a business owner myself, I want to like have it in a situation where I can prove that I'm not at fault, because again, like shit, just driving up here today. I mean, it's 120 miles from Minneapolis. I saw trucks get cut off fucking more times than I can count, and like that hard brake or something like that. And then that shift on a pallet or whatever that comes, that adds to an insurance claim and everything else. It's just like that proof of, hey, we weren't the ones fucking around.
Yep. The battle of the 68s.
Oh.
So you get on the interstate and you got trucks governed at 68 miles per hour, and you sit there for 10 miles. And the thing for us from a technology standpoint, so we used to govern our trucks to 68 miles per hour, and we were cutting out on power so bad. And come to find out, as soon as we moved them to 70 mile per hour, our fuel mapping and our power was totally different. We had more power to make safe lane passes, get around people, and then get back in our lane. So with that being said, I know a lot of insurance companies and things like that require a speed limiter of, say, 68 miles per hour. But I think it really all boils down to your safety program, your driver quality. And, let's be honest, I don't think there's a single CDL driver that I know of that blatantly wants to travel 85, 90 miles an hour down the road, putting people at risk.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think, what's funny is you bring up the insurance companies doing that, but like I forget the name of like the insurance lobbying group that was on Capitol Hill, because I broke down an article about this last week. They don't even know what the right speed is. So it's like, I think it's like, why are we even talking about that? If you are the oversight of the insurance companies out there and you can't even say specifically this is the speed that saves lives, it's a fucking joke to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's the thing we look at. Like I said, getting back to your level of safety and the speed limiters, what's your likelihood of being involved in a crash at 68 miles per hour versus 70 mile per hour? And what's the data and the analytics that back it up? Because we all know the numbers don't lie.
Yes.
So show us numbers. So.
I agree with that wholeheartedly, man. So what's on tap for you guys? Are you guys actively hiring drivers right now? What's that look like?
Yep. So we've been growing our fleet, or trying to grow about 10% every year. We really focus on quality, not quantity. Always looking for qualified CDL drivers, and it's a lot easier said than done. But we feel that once they get into Valley and they understand Valley and really an industry as a whole, I mean, you've heard it 100 times. We're moving America forward. We stop, the world stops, and I'm a firm believer in that.
Amen.
So,
amen.
Kind of getting off on a tangent there.
No, it's fine. Get off on a tangent. I was just talking about that with Joyce. It's like we're the greatest industry and the greatest nation on earth, and we need to be continuously putting education about literally everything out there to keep people in business, to keep people moving. Because if the truck stops, we're all fucked.
Yep.
I don't think people can actually conceptualize how fast we would run out of literally everything.
Yeah. I was raised in a agricultural community. My dad's worked in an elevator his whole life, been involved in a farming operation his whole life.
Yeah.
And I still do that. So to this day, nights, weekends, holidays, I'm running around in tractors and doing different stuff on the farm and driving truck, hauling grain and chemical and fertilizer. And I always was curious how equipment got from the manufacturer to the dealer to us, the farmer. And here you show up with a 60,000 pound tractor and you're like, man, I bet that thing really sucked to haul. Well, that's what I do now, is I figure out how to haul it.
I love it. See, those are my favorite shipments though, Karsen. I absolutely love anything over 100,000 pounds. I love it. I mean, I think the biggest shipment I ever hauled in my career was 150,000 pound boom lift. It was fucking massive. It was I have a picture of it on my phone. I posted it out there on social media a while ago. There was literally one driver who had we'll call it what it is, man, the balls to fucking do, because it picked up in downtown the Bronx. It picked up in the Bronx, dude. There aren't a lot of drivers out there who will run that.
That definitely takes balls. I'll give you that.
Hey, man, how does anybody reach out to you guys to find out more about you guys, what you're hiring for, and everything else?
So you can reach us at valleytransinc.com or give us a call at our 800 number. It's 800-657-4910. And give us a call. I mean, it doesn't matter if you reach one of our receptionists. We got 50 different people in our company that want you here and need you here. So
I love it.
We try really hard at what we do, and we're going to keep trying hard for decades to come. So
I love it, man. Karsen, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks.
Go enjoy your evening and whatever's left in that koozie over there. It's not on camera. It's not on camera.
all right.
We're all good, man.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Got my man Tom coming on next. We're holding the firm. Cody Miller. He's out there. Set our speed limiters for cruise at 68 and accelerators at 76. It was a happy middle ground and seemed very effective and well backed by the drivers. That's good to hear, man. Again, my opinion's my opinion, and I know that there's other trucking companies out there that are going to do it a certain type of way. And I got my friend Tom here. Tom, why don't you introduce yourself and where are you from?
Oh, Stoughton, Minnesota, big town, like 300.
Massive.
People. It is massive. You don't even have a stoplight or McDonald's. But second generation, family owned, small fleet. I purchased from Dad 5 years ago now, so we're
Okay.
just staying around that 7 to 10 truck range right now for now. Hopefully, once things mellow out again, we'll grow.
Yeah. So you guys are 7 to 10 trucks.
Yep.
You guys are the literal backbone of our industry.
It is. That's what I heard today was, what is it? Majority was
97% are 20 trucks or less, man.
Yep.
Well, the beauty of data is very subjective, so it depends on who's saying
exactly.
it.
I heard 6 trucks and less.
Oh, okay, that's what
Yeah.
it is. All right. So what are you guys doing right now, current market? Because as you know, the last couple of years, the market was fucking phenomenal.
Yep, that spot market.
Yeah, the spot market was phenomenal. What are you guys doing now? How are you guys navigating through this? Because again, there's a lot of people out there who came into this market in the last couple of years, into this industry, excuse me. How are you guys
It's
navigating?
kind of hard for me to relate so much because I might have shot myself in the foot the last year and a half, but I stuck with a lot of contract rate of those commitments. And
Yeah.
I went for contract increases, but I also stuck to that service.
Yeah.
To make sure that they were served and fulfilled my contracts, even gained lanes, and instead of just going for the home run every time, I went for consistency, and it's right now it's paying off.
Yeah.
I have consistent freight. I can go on my contract tenders. I mean, every day I get tenders, and I'm not. I guess the only time I struggle is once in a while we need freight coming back to fulfill. That's the only thing when you're going with contract freight, you have to come back and make sure you fulfill your commitment.
No, absolutely. But I think you played it the right way. Like, again, I mean, the spot market when it's hot is great.
It is.
Like, you can make a lot of money out there, but playing the long game, like you're coming from a family-owned company.
Yep.
How long did your dad own the company for?
All my life, he started in 77. He got
Yeah.
out of farming, and that's
So
went into trucking. So.
he's seen the long term. He's seen the ups and the downs, the highs
Yep.
and the lows of it. And you guys know that it's like, your margins are going to be compressed in certain markets, but it's that
It is.
consistency because, a saying my old man always lived by is if our wheels ain't turning, we ain't earning.
Yep.
So it's like it's finding that niche that keeps you moving, it keeps you running and everything else. And I think you honoring those contracts is what's keeping you
It is
right
the right
now.
way.
It's keeping you at that elevated rate.
It
No
is.
customers like, hey, we're going to drop you guys out and go find another provider. Because that's a very real thing with a lot of people right now who are taking advantage of the spot market. And when I say taking advantage of it, they were quoting sky high, providing shitty service,
Mhm.
and then customers didn't get rid of them because they needed the capacity.
Exactly.
Now they don't need you, but they need you,
Yep,
and
you're
they're
the-
rewarding you.
And guess who's going to be the first one to be kicked to the curb, so to speak?
Yeah. Them. They're already gone.
Yeah,
They're already
exactly.
out the door. So you're honoring contracts. You're staying out there. What are you doing from a cost perspective right now? Like, how do you manage? Because fuel is probably obviously your highest expense
It is.
that you get.
Yeah, just add everything in there. You have driver fuel, and then you add in, look at tires and maintenance. Everything going up with that. And DEF it's not a huge expense, but when you figure in the ratio of how it's gone up in the last year, it's right along with everything else too. But
So from a maintenance perspective, when you're talking about tires and everything, do you guys maintain your own
we
fleet?
maintain our own fleet. We'll do the overhauls on the older equipment, and that's out of warranty. But everything that I try to keep everything in warranty. But I'm not one to lose $1,000 in order to get a $500 warranty claim. I'll go out and fix it myself. But if that truck can keep going instead of waiting 3 days for a warranty work, it's not worth that.
Do you think that that's something because like my old man maintained his own truck for the most part. Everything that he could fix himself, he'd fix himself. Do you think that that's something that those owner ops right now, like the base,
it's a big thing for them, but a lot of guys they're honest. They know they can't mechanically do it. They're not capable. It doesn't mean they can't. It just, but then you have to balance your time as well.
Yeah.
If you're gone all week and family, and sometimes that takes priority too.
No, for sure.
And look, like us, we're fortunate enough. I have room in the shop and everything to do that. But for some guys, they're working out of their garage. They'd have to be working out of their garage. And and to get it safely to the neighborhood, how if they're in town, how realistic is that too?
No, for sure. So do you like from like parts and tires and everything else, do you buy in bulk? Do you go out and you buy
I
like
have a good I work with national accountant I'll throw Bauer Built here. Bauer Built and Pumps. I have some direct guys that I buy from. They're my reps, and then they have also guided me. I use the Michelin Advantage program for tires, but then I run caps on the trailers, and
okay.
I control that. If you have your own caps and running your own casing, you can control that versus buying the casing from the truck stop, because your quality, what it is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think a lot of it to me is it's like, putting that information out there for that driver who's looking at, I got to put 18 brand new wheels on there. What, like, do you suggest buying double when the market's down? Do you play that market where
I was fortunate enough I did that. I've got 2 or 3 sets of drives right now because the market was that way. I had the money I could spend. I knew I was going to need them sometime this year, so I bought them this spring. Or that's kind of how you do it. If you have the money, you buy what you're going to need in the future.
How imperative is it? Like, I feel like I know the answer to this, but I also want that person who might not know the answer to this to hear it from a maintenance fund and like an emergency fund. And how are you playing it? Like when the market's up, like when you're hitting those peak rates for you, about stashing away for that rainy day.
That is important, because some guys, they stash away for the wrong thing, or they just went and bought toys instead. That's not the right way to go. Or else they did that. Well, it'll always, this market will always be here, because they don't know any better, because they just got into it. And now I feel sorry for the guys that jumped into it and don't realize that it's an up and down flow. It's a cycle. And it is important to hit it when it's high, and then save for a rainy day, so to speak.
No, that's the thing, is it's like, I think, what I want a lot of people to kind of take away from this is where it's like, hey, right now it's going to be like, all right, let's navigate through it. Let's survive, because it's going to pick back up, because like from an overall perspective, like freight volumes are still extremely high. Like freight is still moving. It's not like it's just bottomed out entirely, but I think it's like paying off your debt, and then just focusing on that. And so it's like because I see, I'm on social media a lot, and, I'll talk to drivers a lot, and they're out there talking about, some of these guys are like, I'll run for whatever the hell I want because my shit's paid for. When the market's hot, I pay off everything.
They have to include their replacement costs, or maybe some guys are fortunate they're not going to plan on doing that. They're going to have them retire, so it doesn't matter. Or else someday, heck, when this is done, I'm going to go do something else, and that's fine. But the guy that wants to, like you said, move on to the next step or improve or replace, and even if you don't replace, you still got to overhaul, save away for your maintenance, and overhauls aren't cheap. So
no, absolutely. So how did you? You said you got direct customers. I think that's the second question I'm asked the most. How do I find?
Go about that?
Yeah. So like, what have you done throughout your career to gain that? Because I think people would be pleasantly surprised that, like you said, you got 7 to 10 trucks at any given moment. You have direct freight. How do you go about that from your stance?
I think somewhat times have changed now, because the Google is easy. I mean,
of course, it's the greatest lead generation software out there because it's free.
I mean, I don't do it so much anymore. I mean, I used to be, you pick up stuff in the grocery store, we call reefers. So what is this? Who makes this? And sometimes it's a small company, and a lot of times it takes phone calls, and you got to get past that, what they call the gatekeeper. That's a term you hear.
It's always a term that they're never going to go away.
No. they hold that tight, But if you get a relationship with just making some calls, and you just find some little information. If they're not there, you got to speak to so-and-so. They're not here because their daughter's having a baby. You make that a note. And the next time you call, hey, how was your daughter?
Yeah.
Little things like that. And then they just be personable.
No,
but don't give up. I mean,
that's the thing is it's like you can't because somebody like, and that's the thing is it's like I think people are like I'm nervous in the sales process too, but like I know that you have to continue to go down that route. Like you have to follow up, you have to be present, and customers want to work with you.
Yep.
Like I want that to. It doesn't matter if you have one truck.
No.
That looks like customers want to work with you. But I mean, what's the importance of, again, it's like when you're going to show up there, you're not showing up in a ratted ass t-shirt or anything like that. Like
respect and be professional. I mean, that's a big part. But then hold your commitments. They don't want to tender you accept these loads, or you're going to commit to so many loads a week, and then all of a sudden, oh, I can't make it. You try to call shipping or whoever the vice president of transportation calls while you're not fulfilling your commitment.
Yeah.
That's the biggest part. That's a fear too. I mean, you take it, you do your word, and make sure you fulfill it. But that is a really big challenge sometimes. That's why through the years I've had to bounce trucks. I've had to bounce 1,000 miles to make sure I can hold the. It sucks, and right now, but this fuel right now, being to do it today, I don't.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna. So how, like, speaking of fuel though, like how are you working with? Because I know there's a big thing, like speed limiters are big out there, and how are you working with your drivers on conserving fuel?
Well, we have everything's got APUs right now.
Yeah.
They really try to hold them back when they're idle. Then I've been one to go for fuel efficient tires and one thing, and your aerodynamics and the skirts and whatever on the trailer. And I've seen an uptick on that. And just like a lot of people, right now, I guess I haven't been as focused as I should have been, but just every little bit, even if it's a 1/10 of a mile, if you can do a change here and there. But for the drivers, it's hard to expect them not to be comfortable.
Yeah.
It's them to be able to get out and pass. I mean, I'd love to just, hey, you need to be at so many miles, but then you got to realize every truck fluctuates too. It can.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And that's where you hear the story, fleets. I've had that where they've had, this was a horrible mileage truck. They thought it was the driver, and all of a sudden they swapped their top performer with that guy that was in that worst truck, and all of a sudden that top performer, the guy that was in the worst one actually brought that top performer's truck up. You hear stories like that, and it's because, it's obvious it's not always the driver. It can be the equipment.
For sure. So how do you manage? Is it a speed thing? Because like I've read a bunch of studies where it's like, again, I'm not a fan of a mandated speed limiter or anything like that, but like the fuel savings that you can get by self-governing your truck at 65 or 68 miles an hour as opposed to running 75 and the spikes of all that.
I think what they say is that a 1/10 for every mile per gallon or mile an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, and right now, if you're scheduling, if you're, doesn't mean you have to run that way all the time. But if you got a lax weekend, if you're running a lax week, why not take it down to 65? But that's each their own. I can't tell.
Yeah.
Other operators do that, but it's hard for me to tell my fleet. I go on my satellite stuff. I can see what the drivers are doing, and as long as it's not over the top, on a consistent basis, I'm not one hounding them, but they know I'm watching. But I'm also respectful. So you can do your thing. I trust you. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's a big thing. So like, how are you guys out there looking at expanding out in today's market? Because again, I think that's another thing that people are up against right now is, they want to hire drivers, or they want retain. Everybody's hiring. Drivers, yeah. So like, what are you guys doing right now in that?
Right now, I'll be looking for drivers, but I'm making the trucks ready, so to speak. I've got a couple that come in. I've cleaned them up and make them as nice for the drivers as we can. We have refrigerators and all of them, APUs and power inverters, microwaves, satellite radio, and some. I find out the satellite TV isn't as important to the guys because they want to be running and making money. They're not. A lot of them don't like sitting anyways. So
they're gonna sit and watch Netflix for 4 days.
Exactly, but a lot of it's pay. Because we have consistent. I pay off like a salary base for them. So.
So you pay salary.
Yep.
That leads into my next question. What is your stance on salary versus rate per mile?
I think the rate per mile, it could be great, if the guy's busy, but what about the weeks where the carrier's getting high revenue, but it's only like a 1,500 or 2,000 mile a week, and they're paying the driver mileage.
Yeah.
But yet they're creating the same amount of revenue as if you would have ran that 3,000 miles. That's right. If find a balance at that.
Yeah. So you're out there salarying your drivers. I know a couple other companies that salary their drivers, and they've never had a problem filling a seat because it's like, well, how is that help out in retaining your drivers?
I think it helps. I know we all have to date and review the program, but that's kind of where I'm looking at now. They're probably going to get an increase here again, but because especially right now, we have to go up just cost of living is more. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so it's like for your drivers, their salary, is it like benefits, PTO, the whole nine?
Yeah, I have PTO and it varies how long you're there, PTO, and then we pay, we're up to 75%, I believe. I got to look at my pamphlet, but of the driver's health insurance, and then 401k contributing, and we're all there, and I have vision and dental too that we offer. And but I'm all W-2. I don't do that any at 1099. I pay them what I call the right way. I know guys that there's a lot of company drivers that they're paid 1099 and they like it. But they understand it too.
No, definitely. So how has that helped from because again, it's like I think when you're out there and you're getting people, you're keeping them, like treating them as an employee, like that has to have helped from how many less arguments do you have about what their mileage is and their records versus yours, and then also like being a part of in like detention, because that's obviously a big thing, wait time when loads are canceled and everything else. How is that helping your business, like even from your customer standpoint? Like how are you leveraging salarying your drivers, and then how is that help from a customer retention standpoint?
I think maybe it comes down to consistency, and because they're there, it's consistency, and they look out for you. I guess we try to treat them like family anyways.
Yeah.
And I guess we kind of tricky, and sometimes if it's a real bad detention, we don't really have a, so to speak, detention program, detention on our own judgmental basis.
Yeah.
I don't want to take advantage of them all. And
no, for sure.
It's easy to do that. For some other guys, they just write it off. Oh, we got detention, but why pass it on the driver? And that's not right. But because we seldom really have to deal with detention, so
yeah, no, that's good. And I think like so they're bonused in a sense then too.
Yep.
So how do you bonus out a driver who is on salary though?
You work it with performance or days out. How I've been doing it, like they have a base rate, and then we do days out. And I'm looking at including more like performance sheet or things that they've done, like being proactive as far as like tire repair. I caught this or that. I'm working on a program there where they can just keep track of all that. We'll reward them for doing a good job and being aware.
I like that. Yeah, I think that it's again, because it's like that's almost like it's just obviously it's an incentivization, but I feel like there aren't a lot of companies out there that are like doing that and really putting that and like looking at it from a different perspective, because I think like the rate per mile or the cent per mile has always been the way to compensate.
It has been.
And
because it's always been there, so why change?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I guess you're hiring right now for drivers, right? So put that in. How does anybody find out more, and how does anybody contact you?
Oh, Kuehl Transit, that Kuehl.
Yeah.
It's a fun one to
spell. It's an upper Midwest. Anybody who's from the upper Midwest will be able to understand it.
Yeah. I have a website, and that one's hard to follow, but we're working on getting a better digital platform for applications. But otherwise, our Facebook Messenger, we can go on Facebook page and message us, and Kuehl Transit Incorporated. So it's
perfect. I like it, man. Well, hey, Tom, thank you so much for joining me.
Awesome.
I appreciate it. And yeah, hit him up, you guys. He's on Facebook and everything else. Kuehl Transit. And yeah, I think
dropping hook too. So
yeah, absolutely. I love it. You got drop trailers?
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah, that's right.
Even better.
Thanks, Chris.
Take care, man. Could you send John? Can you grab John? Yeah, he just walked. Yeah. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Stace, thanks for joining me. You gained their trust and showed partnerships, honoring your commitment. Sorry, guys. It's a lot different with in person here. And I'm trying to keep up with the comments here. Scott, Freight Sensei, good to see you, brother. Christina, parts are short because new guys are in the trucks are in the shop. John Radvansky, what's up, man? All right, and this is our fourth and final guest, the man, the myth, the legend, the president of the MTA.
Hey, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, man.
Glad to be here.
Hey, thanks for joining me here. If you want to go on and introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm president of the Minnesota Trucking Association here at our 90th annual conference.
It's insane. 90 years. I love it. And especially for none of you guys who aren't familiar, Alexandria, Minnesota is like 130 miles outside of Minneapolis, but it's just absolutely gorgeous up here. The lake that this place is on is phenomenal. I love it.
Well, Minnesota is known for lakes, and we have pockets. And this area, which is kind of northwest, is lake country. There's lots of lakes here, a lot of farmland, a lot of lakes, and very beautiful. And in fact, Scandinavian heritage is big.
Massive.
So there is a mascot in town, 2-story, almost 3-story tall statue of Ole the Viking.
Okay.
So the Minnesota Vikings, we come by it naturally.
I'm a Packers fan, born and raised in Wisconsin.
Okay, we're going to cut the show right now.
And we're done. I saw the paper towels over there, aka the Vikings jerseys, hanging up. I gotta say it. So, you guys are out here. How are we working with our members at this conference? Like from a lot of current events, because there's a lot of stuff being thrown out there from a legislative standpoint, federally and state-wise. How are we working with our members through education and preparing them for the realities of what is going to come, or what might not be like as serious as the media might be making it sound?
Well, I think that one of the beauties of a live conference, right?
Yeah.
Getting together is you can talk about the big picture stuff and what it means on the ground. So, for example, we have the president and we're going to have the conversation about, is the grid, is the infrastructure ready to supply the power to power the trucks? Because what we see so often in trucking, we see disruption coming from the outside, right?
Yes.
Right. We can build electric motors. We can put them in trucks. We can build charging stations. We can demonstrate that works. But now you have this issue of, well, this is a lot of power draw. Trucks are different than cars. There are all these dynamics. So the interplay of, we're going to have Chris Clark answering the questions that are most top of mind. How do you ensure uptime? How do you make sure when we travel from one provider to another that the service and quality is going to be exactly the same? What are you going to do in terms of the precious metals? What if we don't have the precious metals?
Yeah.
And on the backside, how are we going to recycle these products? And what is the true life cycle cost? Oh, and by the way, our customers tend to not pay us more based for the energy we use. And yet these vehicles we're going to buy are really expensive. So can we actually save money? Is there a way that we can drive costs down through this? So that's the kind of conversation we're going to have, unfiltered, no marketing people, no media folk. We're going to have the president of the energy company answering trucking questions.
And that's what I think what a lot of people need to hear, because like if you go out there and you know, EVs, battery powered, whatever you want to spin it, it seems like it's going to happen tomorrow, you know? And then like you look at that 1 to 5 truck operator who's like barely making it work right now, and then they're going to be forced into buying a brand new fleet at that standpoint. And like you bring up a lot of valid points, and that's kind of like my big, like I'm a traditional diesel fan at heart. I love the smell of diesel. I love everything that it does. And it's like it's like all the things that it's what's not talked about is like, how are we going to actually mine the material? Because northern Minnesota, math area up there, you know, and in the Iron Range and everything, are we going to have electric mining vehicles at that point? Like, and then furthermore, to your point, which I think is the most imperative part of it all, is the power grid. Can it even sustain that? Because like I live out in Arizona right now. Out west is known for rolling blackouts over the summer when temperatures hit a certain thing. Like, what do we do? Like, what's our backup plan? What's the contingency of if the power grid gets shut off or whatever happens? I mean, Minnesota's not exactly known for not having mild winters, you know, power out. I remember as a kid growing up in Wisconsin, the power went out for like 2 days. Thank God we had a fireplace,
right?
You know, but it's like that's a very real thing. What happens then? Then we can't charge the trucks. Then the shelves get bare. Like the realities of what the current situation looks like to me is like, that's always the great unknown. It's the sales pitch of this is what it's going to do for the environment. This is what this, but the infrastructure of how it's going to actually be executed upon, I think, is like nobody's actually talking about. So that's why I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Well, and I think
tomorrow.
it's going to be great because I know Chris Clark. I've got to know him through some. We took essentially a visit to the FedEx facility in Memphis about 4 years back.
Yeah.
Just as sort of a Minnesota learning about stuff trip. And what I can tell you is he's a very thoughtful guy.
Yeah.
We've spent time preparing, so he knows what are our concerns, and I think he's going to hit them head on. And one of the things that I learned even up front is, when you have a system that big, change is slow, and there are things that they've had in the works for a long time and things that will take a long time. I think he's going to give us a good sense of what the pacing really will be. And so I think it'll be helpful to our members because that's the question.
Yeah.
Right? If you're in a 3-year trade cycle with a truck, you have two questions. What am I going to be buying in 3 years? What's that truck going to look like? Or in a year, right?
Yeah.
But what's its residual value? And you're costing all of that out. And this is just another way to give our members insight. And when we look at our annual conference, one of our goals is to say, how are we forward looking on some of the bigger issues, but put it in terms that our members can basically take in bite-sized chunks now and do something with it.
No,
so it's not just all foo-foo in the sky.
Yeah.
But okay, what do I do with that?
Absolutely. So from like a legislative standpoint, I know speed limiters are all over right now. Like they're looking at it in DC and everything else. And I was talking with Karsen about this earlier. And I've, because I want to know, why, like what that benefit is. I understand from a safety and accident reduction, I get all of that. But like my biggest thing is it's like, where's the tangible evidence and the actual benefit to the small trucking companies that are out there?
Well, and let's just talk about speed first of all, because speed limiters are a subset, right? So the sad news is that, at least in Minnesota, the data shows us that everybody's speeding, cars and trucks.
Yeah.
And we can control the speed ourselves, right? But there's a fundamental responsibility of what are speed limits and what is law enforcement doing.
Yes.
And making sure that law enforcement has the tools and that people respect law enforcement.
Correct.
And they respect the laws, as our fleets do. Our members understand that if they speed, they're going to get, bad things happen. First of all, crashes go up. You do get CSA score dings, right? There can be crashes and fatalities and injuries. You don't want that. But speed limiters as a blanket across the board solution are not going to address most of the things we're trying to get at, right? You create speed differentials, you create, basically lanes that are going faster, lanes that are going slower. It doesn't get to the fundamental problem, which is changing behavior and making good choices on the front end.
I agree with that.
Fleets about holding their drivers accountable, and today with the ability of fleets to communicate with their drivers, they have fuel bonuses, speed, driving speed. These are things we talk about all the time. We're laser focused on them. We don't need the federal government mandating an artificial limiter on it.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. We don't need any other mandates. Because to me, it's like, what's the whole point of a speed limit? You're like, are we going to remove the speed limit? Because if engines are governed at 70 miles an hour or whatever that looks like, why do we have speed limits? Why do we have cops at that point then, right?
Right. Now, I will say, having made that real strong declaration, that's our position as an organization right now. But there are fleets that think it should be.
Of course.
And, one of the things we want to do as an organization is make sure we have a good internal debate so that our members on all sides of this issue can talk.
Yeah.
And it does raise people's temperatures. And I think, we have good people within our industry on both sides of this. But right now, our position as an organization is that we oppose mandated speed limits.
Yeah. And again, I like that you're putting that out there. There's no, as you guys can see, John was very clear cut in his stance on there. There was no beating around the bush or anything like that. And I appreciate that because, again, I think like that, I see both sides of it. I truly do. I want to save lives. I think we all want to save lives. I've never met one person who's been on either side of this who's like, I want to see more people pass away. That's not what it is. But to me, it's like when it's just lacking so much substance to me on like the validity of why it's needed. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, like, so from an advocacy standpoint, where are you, like, what's top of mind right now for the Minnesota Trucking Association, whether it's a state legislation or federal?
Well, they're two different worlds for sure. And, I think we go back to what I think average people, businesses, drivers, fleets, we just like predictability.
Yeah.
We like things to settle down so we know what the rules are, so they don't change, so then we can build our lives and our businesses on them. And so, we still have great concerns about Minnesota wanting to adopt its own fuel standard.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever you change, what we've learned is when you are talking about fuel, it's a system. There's the engine, there's the injectors, there's the after treatment, there's the fuel, there's the fuel dispenser, there's the fuel storage. And so anything that disrupts that has huge ripple effects. And right now, Minnesota is tying it back to electricity. There's a real push for zero emission vehicles, low emitting vehicles, and that's really electric, which you just talked about. But along with that, they want to even look at a Minnesota specific fuel standard. We already have a biodiesel mandate. It's mature. It's doing the job it was designed to do. We have an ethanol program. We don't need to add more right now. So I think fundamentally there's that. And, I think workforce, supply chain, fuel, they're the big three. They're all intertwined right now.
No, absolutely. And that's the thing is it's like there's a lot. I got to say this, though, and as we're kind of wrapping up everything here, I think these last 2 years have proven more and more that this industry is needed. We need to be there to support our drivers, our trucking companies, the supply chain as a whole. Right. And we got to give credit where credit's due, because if it was the supply chain operated, in my opinion, the way it's designed to, I'm not saying it wasn't stressed. I'm not saying that there weren't things that happened, but goods still flowed. They were contracted at times. There was congestion. There's still congestion that we're dealing with out there in the ports and everything right now. But the flow of goods is still moving to every member of the supply chain, all the transportation professionals out there who kept this going in the most uncertain times of our probably our at least the last 20 years.
Well, I would just say this in closing.
Yeah.
90 years. When they formed this organization, 90 years, the interstate didn't exist.
Yeah.
The diesel engine wasn't being used in trucks. It was gasoline.
Yep.
You didn't have air ride, right? You didn't think of all of these things. What an amazing industry it is. And how, yes, every day, despite the challenges, we keep it going. And I look at 90 years of, that's who we are. Truckers are the master of the workaround.
That's exactly it. John, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for being here and supporting us.
Absolutely. That's it for this is my first live in-person show that I've done. It's great to be here at the Minnesota Trucking Association. My dad was big. It's why I joined this organization, as a way to really honor my family's tradition of trucking in Minnesota. That's why it's a great honor to have it be at the Minnesota Trucking Association, to have it be my first live event. So thanks again, John. I appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow morning, you guys, 8 a.m. Central for the Freight Coach Morning Show. We're going to be speaking with 2 more individuals of the Minnesota Trucking Association's next generation in leadership. I appreciate you guys all so much for your growing and continued support. If you guys found value in this, as I always, share the show, you guys. Get it out there, share the show. That's how this is all going to continue to grow. I appreciate you all so much, and we'll be talking to you soon.